Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Carlton People. And today I've got one half of one of the new Carlton fan podcasts that's emerging, and that is the Navy Blue Corner. And I am with Ian. What's happening, mate?
Hey, thanks for having me, Terry. Not too much. Bit of a gloomy day in Melbourne today, but yeah, it's not too bad.
It's a classic day in Melbourne. It's cloudy and grey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah, mate, like I said, you're one half of the Navy Blue Corner, which we'll definitely touch on shortly. Yeah. But before we do that, and you're also part of a band as well, so there's lots to talk about. But let's start with you and your Carlton experience. How old are you, first of all, and when did you become a Carlton fan?
Yeah, so I'm 24 years old and basically born into a ridiculously passionate Carlton family. Didn't really have too much of a choice. Like, my dad's a massive Carlton fan, grandparents, great-grandparents as well. Pretty much my earliest memories as like a human are Carlton memories. I remember probably my earliest memory was surprisingly like the 1999 grand final. I think I was like 3, so I didn't remember too much that was going on, but I just remember it being like a really big day and there was a lot of excitement, but I didn't really know what footy was at that stage, so I wasn't too involved. But yeah, I remember, because unfortunately our sort of life, Carlton haven't been too good for a long period. So growing up, I didn't get to see a lot of wins. And I think, if I remember correctly, after sort of Brisbane won the three-peat, I went to my dad as a young kid. I've gone, can I go for Brisbane? Like, Carlton always lose. Can I go for someone else? And he sort of took me out the backyard and looked out the side. He's gone, look, you can, but you'll be sleeping in the shed if you do go for another club. And so I learned pretty quick that it was Carlton or nothing, and I couldn't be happier, to be honest. It's been a good journey so far, even if we haven't got all the wins.
Yeah, look, we are going to have a unique experience when we're passing on the stories to our kids and grandkids, because I think, the generation before us, they grew up in winning. All they saw was winning, whereas we're going to have the story of, hey, we started from the very bottom, and I remember the days when so-and-so got sacked and we drafted this guy and it didn't work. And I hope more than what I think. I hope that that's going to make a better story.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was born in 96, so a year after the grand final, and I genuinely thought I was a curse because every time we'd go to a game, we'd lose. And we would go to sort of 4 or 5 games a year, and every single one we'd lose. It was to the point where my family were trying to look at the fixture and pick games that were like, Carlton have to win this, and then we'd always lose. So they got to a stage where I was pretty scared to go to the footy, and I didn't want to go because I didn't want to cost us the game. And as I said, like, we ended up going to like 4 or 5 games a year. So it's crazy that we lost that many. And then finally in 2008, Carlton Collingwood, finally got to see my first win. So it honestly could not have happened in a better way.
That was your first win, that Carlton
first ever win I got to see in person.
Which game? Do you remember the year? Talk to me about the memory.
2008, I just remember Fev absolutely kicking a bag. It was just one of those games where I feel like it was pretty close like throughout it, and then we started to kick away, and then there was just Fev magic all over the place. He was just kicking them from everywhere. I think he might have got like 8 or 9, which was just like standard back in those days. I kind of miss not having a goal kicker that you could just rely on to kick at least 6 per week.
100%. Yeah. No, he had this ability which not many players do. The draw card ability. When he plays, he's going to be playing well, and he had this ability to bring 50, 60, 70,000 fans on their, to their feet, I should say. He was a special one.
He certainly was. He was unreal.
Yeah. So now you have, I guess, a rebuilding list. It's looking optimistic. We've drafted the core of it. I think maybe the next 3, 4, 5 years are going to be, well, if everything goes to plan, they're going to be the real happy years, and when the work comes to fruition. So how do you experience the club at the moment?
It's a strange one. As soon as we sort of started this rebuild, it was probably a period in my life, especially, where I was probably like the most out of footy at that stage. I was sort of just out of high school as well, to sort of start to experience the world. And when Carlton weren't playing that well, I was sort of not that keen to watch it too much, even though I got like season tickets sort of thing. So the reserved membership gets to go to all the home games, but it was a bit of a slog to go to a lot because you're just getting smashed by sort of hundreds of points. But it's been really the last sort of 2 sort of years that you've started to see the signs come in. You're starting to see the young guys start to develop, and especially under T, there's just been such a big jump from what it was under Bolton. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing. There's still obviously quite a bit of work to go, but I just think that there's enough sort of core there. You look at guys like Wiedering, and even though Jones is aging a little bit, they're sort of, the defense is really stocked. We've got some really good forwards, as we all know. It's just about getting those little pieces now, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. Let's touch a little bit on the Navy Blue corner. It's one that's popped up. I think 2020 will go down as the year where the fan content began in the AFL, and I think the Blues really lead the way there. So talk to me about the Navy Blue corner. How did it start? Where did it start? When did it start?
Yeah, so started this year, but it's kind of a bit of a weird story. I always wanted to do something like this. I remember in like 2010, 2011, I started to really get into my like English soccer. I'm a massive Liverpool fan, and when I was trying to learn about the game, there was like nothing on Australian TV about it. You'd barely get the highlights of the goals. So going on YouTube, I found the Redmen TV, which is a big fan channel, and through that, I was just able to learn so much about the game, get a fan's perspective, and from being a diehard fan of that, I was always thinking like there should be a Carlton one for this. Why is there's no channels like this at all? And there wasn't for quite a while, and it was probably last year that I sort of started to notice the Blue Abroad and see these other channels, but I always still wanted to get involved in the conversation and have a bit of a talk myself. And I guess I was always a little bit nervous to start something because it's hard to sort of put yourself out there because you've got to sort of do your research and know what you're talking about. And I wasn't sure if I had sort of the other person to do it. I sort of wanted someone else to bounce the ideas off. And Lockie, we've been to high school together, been good mates for years. All we do is talk Carlton. And I think it was sort of New Year's Eve of start of 2020. I asked him, I was telling him I really wanted to start like a Carlton podcast. I didn't sort of say, do you want to start one together? I was just sort of putting out the feelers, and then he was sort of like, yeah, go for it. It'd be really cool to do. And then round 1 happens. I was sort of thinking about it, sort of going up to that, didn't end up doing anything. And then as soon as sort of COVID shut down, was really keen for footy to get started. Lockie sends me a message. He goes, do you still want to do that Carlton podcast? And my eyes lit up. I was like, this is perfect. This is everything I've wanted to do. Someone's finally making me have to actually do it. And yeah, as soon as the restart started for this season is when we kicked things off, and it's been so much fun so far. It's
great. No, it is. It's a phenomenal. I mean, look, at the end of the day, and I mean, I was somewhat very, very similar to you. Obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan, so Arsenal fan TV really just plugged into the Redmen, right? And I think I had a little bit of reservation, like, but I'm still young. I don't really know anything about winning, and I don't know what it takes. But then I sort of break it down, and it's like, well, listen, what do you talk about with the most passion? And it doesn't, not that it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, but what matters is, when you do something that you're actually passionate about, it actually ends up, that's when good work happens, right?
Yeah. And yeah, it was definitely something that last season, when we started the season and we were so poor under Bolton, there was all these talks about, are we going to sack him? Are we not? And I was just trying to get so much content, trying to watch all the TV shows, everything, like the footy show, all of those. And they might talk about Carlton for like 3 seconds. And even when they do, you can tell they haven't done their research. And it's been so evident this year when you listen to all these fan channels that how much more research we seem to do as just fans compared to them. And so that was another reason why I really wanted to start it. Not only just not because I thought that I had the answers, but just to try and have a discussion and talk to other people, because I might have an idea, but I want to know if I'm just an idiot. It's sort of these pub talks that you have with your mates that you can actually bring to more people. And it's been maybe the best year for these fan channels because we can't go to the footy. So everyone's sort of just wanting to chat to everyone. But I tell you what, there's a cool community here. I'm really keen for the season to have fans again, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of beers shouted for a lot of people.
I think so, mate. I think so. I think you're right. There seems to be a real, I'm not sure if it's the generation, but there seems to be a real shift in the way we go about it. There's a real collaborative mindset. It's not so much about competition, which what you might think it usually would be. It's, we all, like you said, we just want to connect and have a chat.
Yeah, I was definitely a little bit worried about that as well when we sort of started, how people would take to us, because there was already quite a lot of Carlton content. But it's just been an amazing community so far. Everyone is just so welcoming, sharing each other's content. It's probably just the best thing, because at the end of the day, we all just love footy and we all just want to chat to each other about it. So it's the best fan base out there, really.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Where do you see the industry moving on a high level? Or do you just think this is a bit, do you think that, the fan content, do you think it's just a small minor thing for 2020, or do you think this is the beginning of something greater?
I think it is the beginning of something greater, just because of like what you've probably seen as well in like this English Premier League, with the amount of fan channels and how many people are drawn to it. It's probably like the best way. And I can almost see more shows on YouTube where it's just guys from different teams as well collaborating. You see that as well a lot in England. And at the moment, with a lot of the personalities there, they're just trying to sell clicks a lot of the time. They're just saying outlandish things to try and rile up fans and get people to comment. And it's just not genuine, and you can tell it's not. So we have a bit more freedom because, there's no advertisers or anything like that. We can sort of just say anything. And I feel like in the world at the moment, that's what people want. They want honesty. They want people talking about the things that they love. And yeah, I can definitely see a big change with all these fan channels coming up at the moment.
Yeah, love it. There's another side to you. You're also a creator. You're a musician. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so again with Lockie, both of us are in a band. Again, bunch of guys from high school, sort of started just like jamming in a friend's garage, getting it going. And then sort of as soon as high school finished, we were like, are we seriously, what are we going to do? So we decided to give it a crack. And yeah, it's been pretty successful so far. We've signed to like Australian record label, Grayscale Records, and we're basically sort of touring. Well, we were touring quite a lot before COVID and sort of getting everything out there. So yeah, it's been a really fun ride so far.
Yeah, I think you're living life the right way. You seem to be someone that follows what your deeper instincts tell you to follow.
Yeah, I definitely try to find those things that make me happier in life, and that's sort of music and sport. And being able to do those things is incredible. It's something that you always think about, oh, should I do this? Should I go for it? Or do I worry about something else? And probably the best thing I've found so far in my sort of short adult life is just go for what you're passionate about, because at the end of the day, everything else is always going to be there. You can get the job somewhere else down the line if you need that stability, but go for your passions while you can, because you don't live forever. So do it while you can.
100%. Yeah, I always think, if ever something comes up and it's like, oh, should I give it a try? Should I do this? I always think, don't die saying to yourself, I wish I did this, or I could have done this, or, that's kind of the way I sort of live. And I think that's probably my deepest fear, living with or dying with regret.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that. It's just something where if you fail, you fail. It doesn't go anywhere. That's sort of what we thought with this podcast in particular. We were like, I don't think anyone will listen to it. If we get one listener for the year, I'm going to be absolutely stoked. We went in it with no expectations. We more just wanted to have fun and have the chats and then just put them online. And if anyone listens to it, they do. So, I mean, we've been blown away this year with the podcast about how many people have been listening, tweeting at us, sending us in questions and everything. It's been unreal. And sort of same with music. It started out as, we'll give it a go and see what happens. And to have, people buying your merch, coming to shows, wanting to see you sing your lyrics back, it's always surreal. You never get sort of used to it.
Yeah, no, that's dope, man. That's dope. Let's go back to our mighty club. What on a high level, where are we at? Are you satisfied? Are you content? Do you think there's room for growth? What are your thoughts about the club on a high level?
It's a tough one. I think we've definitely improved from where we have been when we sort of started this whole rebuild, and sort of where we were under Bolton, just getting smashed every week. Now it's completely changed this year. We were hoping to be competitive, and now it's got to be finals. That was what everyone was thinking at the end of the season, and we didn't get there. So I think this year's maybe a bit of a failure, but at the end of the day, I think there's still signs there, and it's good to fail because you want finals, and to have the expectations now, that probably just shows you how much this club has grown, because before the season, no one was talking about finals at all. And now that's the expectation for next year. So I like what I see. I'm hoping we can land maybe a few recruits in the off season, because I was sort of doing a bit of research for one of our upcoming episodes, doing a bit of a list analysis, and I can see some big holes in there, especially in the ages is a little bit of a worry. But I think over the next few years, with some of the younger guys coming through that are like 22, 23 right now, and if we can get some of these like 25-year-olds that we're targeting, I think we're going to be in really good position.
Yeah. I mean, I must say, I've been watching the finals. Obviously, we've recorded this at the end of 2020, and we're just into week 1 of the finals, coming up to week 2. And watching the finals for me, you just see how much it elevates, physically and mentally. And not to say that we can't get there, but it just looks, as much as we have improved, just to see how these teams elevate. And I don't know if I mean, the criticism for the most part this year has been about, when things don't go our way, we fight our way out of it, and we've sort of come unstuck in the 5-goal swings, and that sort of thing needs to go immediately if we're any chance in a final. You know what I mean? Yeah,
the crunch games at the end of this season, the Collingwood, GWS, we sort of crumbled when the moment was there. So you can easily look at it and just go the negative route and just say, no, we're not going to be any good. I'd always try to be positive, and that's what I guess we do with the podcast. So if you're looking for negativity, you're not going to find it with us. We're always going to try and find the positives. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season next year, because there's a bit more expectation on them than before. And as you said, we haven't taken those little chances when they have been there. I'm hoping that it's simply we haven't had those chances, and so you're going to learn who steps up, who can actually take it. And that's sort of what Teague's been saying in some of his press conferences, which I've liked. He's going, in these big crunch moments, we're going to find out who in this squad has it and who doesn't, and we can move on from them, bringing guys that can actually do it. So we're going to find a lot about this group in the 2021 season, because it's the first time there's been expectations to make finals. So it's going to be a big one.
Yeah. So just touching on that, what is your expectation for 2021? Is it strictly finals or fail, or how do you look at it?
I think if you look at it, I think it has to be finals, but it's a bit, for me, maybe like circumstantial on how we do it. If we attack in every single game, we don't have these momentum shifts, which has been the biggest issue this year. Everyone knows about it, conceding 30 plus points. If we can stop that, and not that I'm happy to lose, but if we lose games where we've fought hard and the better team has simply won, and that's what happens throughout the whole season, and we miss out on finals because of that, I'll wear that. I'm happy to wear that for maybe one more season of, we just didn't get there, but we gave everything we have. And that's probably where I was maybe disappointed this year, because in those games, as the Collingwood game, GWS, Adelaide was another one where there was just this lack of effort. We just weren't there. And you look at it and you're disappointed, because you're going, where's the effort? If we were out there, like, I'm garbage at footy, but I'd be giving my heart out to play there. So if you can fix that, for me, then the results should fix themselves, because our best has been really good. We've shown we can match it with the best teams, because we get these swings on them as well, and are able to come back and fight our way back into the game. So for me, I want finals, and I think the expectation from the club and fans should be finals. But if the manner of how it happens is we miss out, but we played our heart out, then I think I'll be happy to cop that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, look, there's this notion that, you're just going to get better every single year for the rest of your life. Life just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Things are never linear. You always are going to have your setbacks. And this is obviously as well, 2020 has been a weird year, because and this isn't to make excuses, but these are just the facts. We had sort of a compromised season, which everyone did understand. Then sort of I guess you could say we got the luck of the draw, because we didn't have to have our footy frenzy until the end. Yeah. And we had a couple of 9-day breaks in there. And then what actually happened was that the footy frenzy at the end probably hurt us, because we had already played a big chunk of the year, or 2/3 of the season, and then went into a frenzy. And then, then there was management issues and all of that. But surprisingly, which I don't think many people have spoken about, in 2020, we had quite a few guys who played every single game, which is a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah, the consistency in at least like selection. I think there was some stat earlier in the season. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was like the first time in 4 years or something that we had not changed a person in the lineup, an unchanged lineup into another game of football, which is crazy. That just doesn't happen. So there's been so many list changes, so many like playing the kids. And I feel like this year was the first time we got a bit more stability in the actual team. And it's our best component of our whole lineup is the back line. And that's because those guys have played the most games together. All our issues this season seem to be sort of forward line and the midfield moving with the forward line. And when you look at it on paper, those guys just maybe haven't played together. And I'm hoping that it's just, the fact that they don't have that chemistry yet. And with the lack of training they were able to do this season, with the COVID restrictions, that played a big part. But yeah, I think that the more this group can play together, now that we've got a good group together, I think that we have to improve. And if we don't, then there's clearly bigger issues at the club.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We are very. I mean, I'm very confident that we're on the right track. Very confident, but sometimes a part of me says, am I only just saying that because I'm a supporter and I want him to convince myself? Like, I don't know how to be, an unbiased fan because we're too ingrained.
And it happens every year. You're like, oh, next year will be the one where we take that step, and then it doesn't happen, and you're going, now I'm looking at me, I'm going, cool, 2021, we're going to do it. And then if we don't take that next step, you just keep saying the same thing. So it's a weird one, but I think it's been a bit strange with this rebuild that there's never really been an expectation. And I feel that's potentially hurt the list a little bit, because if you're not holding them to a standard of it's finals or nothing, then maybe that's the issue. They're there mentally going that if we lose this one, it doesn't matter because we're rebuilding, we're developing, wins don't matter. So I think that we need to really start holding them accountable, and hopefully that can help us take that next step, especially mentally.
It's funny because we talk about, winning the next flag and when is it going to come. And then we have a team who train at our home ground, who play for the exact same club. I'm talking about the women who play with all the spirit, play with the ferocity, play with this tenacity and togetherness, and they're well coached, and they're, they've got people that are willing to go that extra step. And it's kind of like, well, we probably should have seen a flag for the club last year. This year. But it was obviously taken away. Do you get around the AFLW?
Yeah, it's been something that I probably wasn't around at first year. I watched the first game, and I just don't think I had necessarily the time for it. But especially this season, I watched so much of it. I absolutely loved it. And especially it's a lot easier to jump in maybe when we're having a bit more success, but just fell in love with so many of the players. I was just loving their effort. And yeah, as you mentioned, when maybe Carlton, the men's team was struggling, and then you see all the things you wanted to see in the women, it's just, you can't not love to watch it.
100%. Yeah, I missed season 1. I wasn't in Australia, so it was kind of like I didn't make time to watch it. I think I watched our first game, and then 2019, I watched it. I watched more of it, and then back end of the year when I got back, I actually went to a few games, and I think once I went to a Carlton. The first one was the Carlton Collingwood game at Icon Park, which we lost. But just seeing that local footy, community footy environment again, and we're talking about the AFL, which is a very commercialized product, but the AFLW sort of bring it back to what people complain about, what the modern game has become. Yeah. And like you said, I fell in love with some of the players. Reel them off: Press Parkers, G Harris. I love them. The Hosking girls. We've lost one, but we've still got Jess. So yeah, I think there's another evolution with the fans. It's just one of those things for me. I think with time and winning, I think it'll capture the rest of the audience.
Yeah, I think it will. It's one of those things. It's so hard for any sort of startup, whether it's men or women. It's so hard to get people engaged. And as soon as you start to get success, it becomes so much easier. And I think that you've seen this year especially, I feel like the competition's taken a massive jump with the amount of people watching it, amount of girls getting into it at a younger level. And it's so hard to start a competition and try to make it professional when there wasn't anything before. The sort of grassroots level of it was really nothing. So I think you're going to start to see over the next sort of 10, 20 years, so many girls that are watching it now that are going to actually play footy because there's a ceiling. You can actually go somewhere with it. So it's just only going to get better, and it's going to be really exciting. And if the Blues are doing well, that makes it even better.
100%. 100%. So I'll ask you this final question before I let you go, and everyone gets the same question. When is the next premiership coming to the club? Male, female, whoever.
I think the women will win it next year. They should have won it this year. I thought they were going to beat Freo. They could get it done. As far as the men, it's a hard one. I think everyone on here seems to say the same year, and it's probably where I had the benchmark when we started the rebuild was sort of like 2023. Did a bit of an analysis the other day on like the core ages and tried to look at other teams where the teams that have won the grand final and started their sort of premiership window, what the average ages were and how many players they had in games, more importantly, those guys had played. And at the moment, we're still a little bit off the sort of 24 to 28 and how many players we have and how many games. I think off the top of my head, we were averaging like 80 or 85 compared to Richmond when they won in 2017 was about 110, West Coast around the 110. So we definitely just don't have the experience in the key positions to win us games. And when I was trying to calculate what that would be over the next few years with just the list that we have, it looked like we were going to peak around 2023. So that's what I'll say. But if we are able to get a couple of big fish, it looks like we're getting Zachy Williams. If we can get Sard, if we can get another gun midfielder, I think that's just going to push it forward. So I think if we don't get the big fish, it'll be 2023. But if we can get a couple in 2022, I reckon.
I'm a big fan of that one, mate. I'm a big fan of that strategy.
Has to be.
Well, mate, it's been great. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Before I do let you go, tell us where we can find the Navy Blue Corner and tell us where we can find the band.
Yeah, beautiful. So the Navy Blue Corner, you'll find it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, all of that. Look it up. Look at us on our socials as well. And then the band is called Stuck Out. So we're on Spotify, we're on all the streaming services, Facebook, all social media as well for both. So feel free to check both out. Terry, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I've been a big fan of all the work you do and been watching all these Carlton People episodes. It's really cool to get a bit of an insight into all the different fans around there, all the good voices of this football club. So really proud to be on here. No
worries, mate. We're a very similar bunch, but we're still very unique in the way that we go about it. And I think the idea of this all is to, first of all, bring that inner child out, when you talk about how did you become a fan? And then, and then you get to see different perspectives, and there's a beauty in the difference for me. So, mate, absolute pleasure to have you on, and we'll be in touch.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Terry.
Go Blues, mate.
Yeah.